Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to get a more responsive tactical sprint, as well as the cleanest and best UI possible, and much more, all from changing a few in-game settings that you probably didn't even know existed. So the first thing we're going to be changing today is actually disabling a new feature that was added into Black Ops 6. I can understand why they added this because it does make the game kind of look smoother. It's this new feature where when you move towards an edge of an object to peek, your character looks like they're leaning to the side. So it's like you're peeking your body out the side of the truck. Now, whilst this does look kind of cool, there's two main problems with it. The first one, the biggest one really, is that it kind of just throws off your aim. Every time you're shouldering around this car here, for example, the gun's constantly moving. It's just this extra motion on your screen that you kind of feel like you're having to account for. Even though I do believe that where you're aiming doesn't change when you're doing this, it's just very off-putting in those tense moments. So that's the main reason I'd recommend you turn it off. But the other thing is, and a lot of people would probably come in and say, oh, well, I don't want to turn this off because my guy's peeking around the corner, so I'm more hidden. No, this is just completely graphical. It's purely on your end. You'll see here, if I'm holding this angle and I'm aiming right on this corner, and we come into the settings where I'll show you here how you turn this off. You just want to find the corner slice setting. I'm going to click the mouse option here. If you're playing on a controller rather than keyboard and mouse, you want to go for this option. But you'll find this within the movement settings in the new intelligent movement area. You'll see if I turn this off, just try and keep an eye on the background. You can see it's purely graphical. When I'm toggling this on and off, I'm staying in the exact same place where I'm aiming. We're just getting rid of that additional motion. So you'll see now by turning this off, I can shoulder this angle, and it's so much more like that classic COD experience without this extra fluff that just doesn't do anything. So just a reminder there, corner slice, you want to go into either keyboard or mouse or controller, go to movement, corner slice, and turn that off. That's setting number one. Now, before we move on to the next setting, all of this means absolutely nothing if you're sat at home at your desk with posture that looks like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. But lucky for all you viewers, today we have partnered up with the guys over at FlexiSpot for their Black Friday sale to show off some of their amazing office furniture that will truly transform your setup. And I've also got some codes at the end to save a bit of cash. First up, we've got the E7 Pro standing desk, and this thing is an absolute beast. I can literally press one of these handy preset buttons and it lifts a full gaming setup plus me. But why do you even need a standing desk? Well, long days sat in one position, like most gamers do, are doing you no favors for your posture or your productivity. Having moved to a standing desk, I make sure to include standing sessions during the day, and it really lifts my mood through long work sessions. And despite the desk only having a single column leg on either side, the stability of this thing in the standing position is actually mind-boggling. And that is all thanks to these automotive grade steel legs that just do all the work for you. Seriously, at this price point, you are not going to be getting anything better quality than this. But even a desk where you're standing up a lot needs a good ergonomic chair paired with it, and that is where the C7 from FlexiSpot comes in. In comparison to previous generic desk chairs that would hurt my back over extended periods of time and make me really sweaty, this chair comes with so many customizable options that completely fix all of those problems. The seat and back are made of this really comfortable premium mesh material that are built to last and are really breathable and comfortable. But don't worry though, if mesh isn't really your thing, they do have foam options as well that you can select on the website. And also as a bonus, the seat on this thing is so much wider than even other ergonomic chairs, you can really kick back and relax. The key thing though that truly sets the C7 apart is just how customizable every aspect of this chair is. Back support tilt, head and neck support adjustments, arm swivel and height, seat tilt so you can relieve pressure in your legs, reclining mode, seat height, and just as a bonus, you can also put a footstool on this thing on the website. I mean, I haven't got it here, but this is truly maximized comfort. As I mentioned at the beginning, it is the Black Friday sale right now over on their website, which you can find linked down below. And I've also got some exclusive codes so you can save even more. For the E7 desks, you can get $50 off using my code YTE7P50. And if it's the C7 chair that interests you, then you can use the code 24BFC7. FlexiSpot will give you a 30-day money-back guarantee on all of their products. So, you know, it's risk-free to try something out. And if you don't really like it, you know, you can get your money back. I truly can't back these guys enough. Their products are amazing. Head to their website down below and use one of my coupon codes to get yourself some new gear. So the next setting we're going to change is going to improve the overall responsiveness and control of your tactical sprint in game. Tactical sprint has become a staple of Call of Duty now ever since Modern Warfare 2019. Obviously, if you press your sprint key in, you do your kind of normal running animation, but if you double tap your sprint input, you will do a tactical sprint, which only lasts a set amount of time, and then you're back to a normal sprint, just like that. And that's how you move much quicker around the map. Now, the thing I've seen most people recommend that I completely disagree with is to come into here, go to your keyboard and mouse or controller settings, and enable tactical sprint assist, which basically is like the old auto tac sprint, where now I don't even have to put in a sprint key or a sprint press. I'm always full speed tactical sprint. But the big problem with this is you've now lost any way of just moving without sprinting, you know, just walking around, which also means if I get into a gunfight and I'm ever moving, I'm always going to have that sprint out time where the sprint to fire time statistic of the attachments on your gun is going to come into play, and it can lose you a lot of gunfights. So what I'm going to show you is how you can get just as quick tactical sprints, but way more control over when and how you're going to do it. So let's come back in here, go to either keyboard or mouse or controller, turn off sprint assist. We don't want that on. Instead, come down to movement behaviors, then movement advanced settings, and you'll find tactical sprint activation. By default, this is set to double tap, so it requires us to press that double tap input. We're going to change it to single tap run. Now, let me show you just how powerful this is. If I move around and don't press the sprint key, I still get my walking animation. I've not lost the ability to do this, which means if I'm playing a bit of a slower scenario, whether it be in Black Ops 6 or in Warzone, I will have no sprint out time. I'm able to get my gun up and start shooting really quick. And I'm going to beat anyone who's trying to tactical sprint around corners onto me. But if I now need to dash away and get into a tactical sprint as quickly as possible, I simply need to input one sprint tap, and I'm straight into tactical sprint. I don't need to double tap that key. And the other thing which is very good about this is you'll see that when tactical sprint runs out, if I just keep holding the sprint key, when it refreshes, we get tactical sprint back. So I'm just running around the map now, holding both W and shift on my keyboard, and I'm getting the maximum amount of movement speed I can get, and then I can stop, and I can start walking again. This is the best way to set up your tactical sprint. Gives you that responsiveness, gives you that control, and you're going to be able to outplay people so much easier in so many situations. Moving on now, we're going to take a look at how we can best set up our UI and our heads-up display to make it far easier to gather information available to us and make better decisions in game. Know where enemies are, know how you're going to flank. It's all going to play into how well we perform in our multiplayer matches. And lucky for us, in Black Ops 6, there's some new ways that we can play around with the HUD, which is really, really cool. We've never had this before. You come over to settings, then go down to interface, and then in the gameplay HUD tab, we have HUD presets. If you click that, you end up with a bunch of preset layouts. A bunch of these are kind of weird. There's one here where you don't even have a mini-map. Wouldn't recommend that. That sounds absolutely horrid. There's one here where your mini-map's kind of small and at the bottom, and you can see the ammo and your grenades and stuff are in the middle. Also, wouldn't recommend it. I'd actually just recommend you start off with standard or magnified. Magnified can be quite good because it gives you a bit more information down the bottom right. But to be honest, the biggest thing is our minimap. So start off with standard and then come over to visuals. And we've got a bunch of different settings we can apply in here. Starting off with the minimap shape. If you have this set to round, you are missing out on a ton of information. If I switch this to square, you can see we get access to the corners because a square has corners, whereas the circle on the round one, we lose those corners. So if we've got a UAV running and there's an enemy who's actually down in this bottom left-hand corner, they're going to be not showing on our UAV. So set this to square. That's the first step. Then moving on, coming down, there's kind of some things here. You can set your minimap rotation on or off if you like, whatever. But the key thing here is scale. If you turn up the scale, you can see we just get a bigger and bigger and bigger minimap. Now, 150 is obviously way too big, but I find something around the 125 mark is really, really good. A bigger minimap means that I can quite easily see in my peripheral vision more of the minimap as I'm playing full pace. And once again, that's going to give me much more information about where enemies are, and I'm just going to be able to play far more efficiently. The next thing I would do, just as a bonus here, because at the moment, everything's very much off in the corners of the screen. So I'm still having to look quite far every time I want to get information from my minimap. Well, you can bring all this stuff in. If you go back to interface, go to HUD bounds, and then just bring in these sliders. I wouldn't bring them in all the way. Maybe about, if you see, I can put it all the way out here or all the way in here. Maybe about halfway on both the north and south and the east and the west here, and then click apply. What it's done is it's brought in all of that useful information just a little bit closer to the center of my screen, which now means while I'm playing, it's so easy for me to quickly flick my eye up every couple of seconds up to the map and instantly get information. I'm not having to really focus too hard every time I need. So it's a really good setting to change here. Much better information, much better heads-up display. I'd recommend you set this up. So the next thing we're going to be changing is actually a pair of settings that will give us even more control over our sprint. Kind of similar to what we were talking about with the tactical sprint stuff earlier, but this is far more widely spread and actually incredibly important that you change. And it's all to do with how Omni movement has been implemented into Black Ops 6. So everyone knows by now, not only can you sprint forward in Black Ops 6, but you can sprint backwards, you can sprint right, if it will work, there we go. You can sprint left, you can sprint in all directions, which is an awesome addition to the game, by the way. Genuinely one of the best things they've added to COD in a long time. It makes it feel so fluid. But the problem I found is that because you can now sprint in so many directions, I'm ending up sprinting in a lot of situations that I'm not meaning to. Like I've put in a sprint input to go forward, and then I want to go backwards, and it's starting doing a sprint when actually I just want to walk, or you know, I start sprinting in all these different directions, and I'm not getting control. A lot of settings I change are all about getting more control, because it will mean you maybe have to put in a bit more input, but you're able to get more control over what you're doing, which is going to make you a better player in the long run. So the two settings we're going to be changing are, you want to go to either keyboard or mouse or controller. For me, that's going to be keyboard and mouse. And then come down to this pair of settings in movement behaviors called sprint restore and slide maintains sprint. You want both of these off. We'll just have a look at these one by one. First of all, sprint restore allows you to resume sprinting after various actions without being required to press the shift key again, or if you're on controller, without having to put in another movement input. This sounds good on the surface because it's like, oh, I don't have to press this button again. But as I just kind of explained, it means that you're going to be accidentally sprinting in so many scenarios that you don't mean to. So maybe you mantle, maybe you're doing an ADS, maybe you're just crouching, and then suddenly you're sprinting again, and you're going, oh no, I don't want to sprint again. I haven't put that input in. So whilst it sounds like a helpful thing to have on, it's taking control away from the player. The same thing goes for slide, maintain, sprint. Continue to sprint after performing a slide. The problem with this one, if we just actually turn this one on for a second, is that if I run forward and then I slide and then stand up, yes, I continue sprinting, so I'm continuing to be moving as fast as possible. But typically one of the reasons that people slide is to actually start an engagement. You know, you come around a corner, you slide and you're ready to shoot. Well, with slide maintain sprint, you're going to be sliding, you're then engaging a sprint for even just a short amount of time, and that's then adding a sprint out time before you can even shoot. And you'll find that when you slide, you can't shoot quick enough. You're going to slide around the corner. The guy who's just stood there is just going to blow your brains out before you can even start shooting. So instead, if we turn off slide maintain sprint, which instead now means when I slide, I come out in a walking animation, that's fine. I can literally slide and then I can hold the sprint key again. It's just one extra input, but it means that I can come around corners and I can shoot way quicker than if I had that setting on. That was a lot of words to explain this, but basically it all comes down to having more inputs you need to put in is a good thing because you get more control. And in this specific example here, you are just going to be getting more kills and winning more gunfights. So go and turn those two settings off. For this next setting that you need to change that I'm almost certain you won't have, I just want to show you an example of a scenario, and it will probably be something that has happened to you in the past that is really, really annoying. If you're ADSing here and you're holding this angle and you think, actually, I want to gain a little bit of a height advantage. I don't want to be on the ground. I don't want to be in somewhere predictable. I'm going to move on top of these bags. I want to jump up, but I don't want to lose my ADS, okay? I'm going to move to the side. I want to jump up. Oh, okay. Well, what I've done there is I've done a mantle. And during that mantle animation, probably you're going to get some COD timing and the guy's going to come around the corner. You're not going to be ADS'd and you're dead. Well, there's a way that we can turn off this setting where if you move towards something, that wasn't a good example, say we move towards this, there's a way you can turn off that automatic mantling. And it's actually requiring you to change 2 things in this game. It used to only be 1 setting, now it is unfortunately 2. So once again, select your input of choice, head over to movement. Then you want to go down to automatic airborne mantle. By default, I believe this is on. Automatic airborne mantle means if you're falling and you end up kind of near a ledge, it will automatically mantle onto it. By setting this to partial, it's just going to make it so that it will automatically mantle only if it will prevent you from taking damage from a fall. So this is going to make sure you don't accidentally take damage from falls that you don't want to, which is good. But the key thing is that then when we go into movement advanced settings, we'll have access to this setting called grounded mantle. If you were to have the previous setting set to on, you wouldn't be able to change this. But we can now come in here and turn this off, and you'll see that what this allows us to do, kind of similar to the overall vibe of this video, we get more control over our movement. Now, if I do this exact same scenario again, where I'm aiming here, I'm holding right, and then I press space, I'm just going to do a little jump. It's not going to automatically do a mantle input. Similar thing, if I come over to this bin and I move towards it and I press space, I'm able to just sort of peek over it, which would be really, really good. Say I'm holding this long angle and I'm back here, I can peek over it. I'm not going to accidentally mantle up this thing really slowly and then get shot by a guy coming out of there. I've just got far more control over what I'm doing. If I do want to mantle on top of something, all I need to do is press space again. So this is pressing space once, this is pressing space twice. So it's an extra input you need to do that's going to enable you to climb on top of things. But it allows you to, once again, peek over things. Oh, that's a little bit too tall. It allows you to get these little peeks over objects. And it also allows you to move around the map, do jump shots and all that kind of fun stuff without accidentally mantling on random bins and sandbags and bollards and everything else around the map. It's a little bit weird to get used to. You might not like this setting initially, but I can guarantee if you stick with it for a little bit longer, you're just going to find you end up in way less situations where you accidentally mantle stuff, and it feels so much better. So go and change it now and get used to it. Now, the final setting I'm going to be recommending you change today is a little bit of a bonus one. It doesn't matter too much, but it's something I'm an absolutely massive advocate for. You might not like it initially, but I 100% recommend you try it out. And it's all to do with changing our crosshair, because the basic crosshair in this game kind of gets lost in the sauce, especially on a map like this where you've got a big white background and you've got this tiny white crosshair and you've got lines on the side of the crosshair. A lot of unnecessary stuff and a lot of stuff that's not as visible as it should be. Luckily, we can change that. If you come into interface and then go to gameplay HUD, you can scroll down and there's a crosshair section here. So I'm going to recommend a couple of things and show you how I have this set up and how I recommend you should set it up too. So first of all, click on crosshair and change it from on to just center dot. What this will do initially is it actually removes the little crosshair lines from the side of your crosshair. Now, technically this means you lose the information of where your hip fire radius will be, but to be honest, do you really need to know that? How often are you hip firing outside of maybe really, really close to people where it doesn't really matter? This is just already far cleaner. You don't have these lines that are sort of moving about as you run around and that kind of stuff. Less visual clutter, in my opinion, is good. The next thing you can then do, if we head back to the crosshair, is you can click show more, and there's far more stuff we can do in here. The first thing being the center dot scale. I'd actually recommend you turn this from default up to larger. What this does, quite obviously, is it just makes that dot in the center of your screen larger. Whereas before it was a really small thing that was quite easy to lose, I'm now able to center and do my crosshair placement far better because it's just far more obvious where I'm going to be ADSing into. So like looking at this door, looking at this window. Overall, I think this really helps your aim. The final thing I then do, and this is where it's really personal preference, especially if you have any color blindness like I do, you can actually change the color of the crosshair. So if we go into interface again, come down to crosshair and then go crosshair color, I've always been a fan in pretty much every FPS game I've had of going for a green crosshair. So I put the hue right in the middle of kind of like the green area, turn the saturation and the brightness right up, and then click apply custom color. And now I have this green crosshair that, especially on a map like this, just sticks out so much. Crosshair placement becomes incredibly easy doing this. And once again, this is one of these things where a lot of people will go, I just like my normal crosshair, I don't want to change it, Please go and try out playing around with this. This is less of me saying this is how you should have it set up, and more of me saying don't just have the default one. Go and play around and find something that works. I'm a big advocate for this kind of slightly bigger just center dot. I just think it's so much more clean, and then changing that color. You need to go and play around and see what works for you. I highly recommend it. So now that you've got all those settings dialed in, you can jump in game and hopefully have a bit more fun if skill-based matchmaking doesn't beat your ass, which I actually can show you how to turn off if you watch this video. This is actually a foolproof way of fully disabling it and getting some more randomization in your lobbies. So go and watch this one next.